Hey, welcome back to Setting the Screen, everybody. I'm Jeff. This is Stu. That's Josh, and we're here to talk about the Batman. What's going on, everybody? Again, this is Setting the Screen, or if you're listening to this on Jeff Needs Help, or if you're watching, thank you. We appreciate everything. We're here to talk about the Batman. I got Stuart Brooking from The Morning Brew with Stu, a fellow member of the Off the Ball Network podcast. I got Josh from Four Nerds by Nerds and the High on Horror podcast. Anybody that's listened to me knows that, Josh, this is like our fourth show together, I think, or fifth show together, maybe, man.
It's definitely our third in a row because I looked that up earlier.
Isn't it crazy? But I love it. It just it works. It just works out that way.
That's only because you took that huge break because we did Rocky 4 and then we didn't do another episode till we did Peacemaker.
Yeah, so it was a huge break for Jeff Needs Help. So just for the record, during that huge break, I recorded 40 episodes of Jeff Needs Sports. So that was Yeah, I took the fall off and only recorded an entire season of my sports podcast. But you're right, man. I looked at that too. Like, holy cow. It's like, it feels like we have to see each other forever, and yet it's every week. Still. So, Stu, this is the first time you've been on with me. Definitely the first time you've been on with Josh. This is a little different than the sports podcast. We get a loose. We have a little fun. I know you're a huge fan of Batman. You're ready for this. So I'm going to say it right now, just like Josh would say. If you haven't seen the Batman, stop. Just pause, come back later, because this is 100% spoiler filled from start to finish. And we won't just, I'm just going to warn you, we probably won't just spoil the Batman. We'll probably spoil every Batman movie that's been made to this point. So, we might spoil Lego Batman. Like, that may come into it at some point. So
it definitely will.
If you haven't seen Batman 89 by now, like, that's on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I understand. So now that we've got the spoiler, we're over the spoiler warning already. Like, there is no spoiler on this podcast because you just we're talking about a 2 hour and 55-minute movie that we just watched. There's so much to break down. There's so much to cover. There's no time for pussyfooting into it. Let's just
if you want a quick spoiler-free review, it's fucking awesome. So go watch it. And now we're gonna talk about it.
Yes. No, that's a good point.
So pause this, go watch Batman, and then come back and then listen to this episode.
Yeah, you'll have plenty of time. I'll have this episode edited and put out before you get done watching the movie. So this was crazy. It feels like forever in the making for this movie. I don't like when it came out. I'm like, holy shit, have we been talking about this because they started making this before COVID, right? 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Josh could validate what I'm about to say, whether it's right or not. But pretty sure this started off as the Ben Affleck Batman solo film and then transitioned into this one. So when you think about it, we've honestly been talking about this since, 2016?
Yeah, Matt Reeves has been working on a Batman movie since 2016.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
But this is a 3 hour long amazing movie, and they did still make this pretty fast because this was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah.
And because we had the first trailer for this a year and a half ago. Like, that's crazy. That's how long ago they filmed it. And Ben Affleck only dropped out in
2019.
Yeah, early 2019, and then by May of 2019 they announced Robert Pattinson. So they made this movie in a year and a half.
Holy cow! It doesn't seem like it felt like man. This is a solid. This honestly, it felt like this could have been. A lot of people complain when they do these big movies and they split them up, like say Hunger Games or Harry Potter. This movie, once I was done watching it in the theater, I could have been like, okay, if you just split this up, I would have been good with it. It was so big. But I'm also like, when it comes to the HBO Max version or the at home, Blu-ray version, then I'm good with like deciding how I break up how I watch it. So, the only thing I think it hurts the time length is I don't know how easy it's going to be to see on cable. You stumble across these movies so often on cable. I don't know how what's it going to be on cable? 4.5 to 5 hours of an afternoon. I think that's going to be a little awkward, almost like, honestly, it's up there with like The Godfather and them as far as like, just how easily it's going to be digestible later on. I don't know if that's something they think about or not, but that's the only thing I think about negative about the time.
Yeah. Well, the negative part I think about the time was I find myself trying to think about this movie, and I know I'm like missing things that I'll just definitely pop in because it was just so much to take in. Like I need to watch it again.
Well, Josh, you're like me too, and as you're doing it, you're basically kind of like coming up with a podcast as you watch it. It's so hard, like just to like watch it and like, okay, because normally we would watch it, and then when you watch it the second time, and that's when you're making your notes, and that's when you're deciding like,
I'm not taking notes while I'm watching this movie for the first, like I wouldn't watch Avengers Endgame and take notes the first time I watched it.
And Stuart, go ahead.
I kind of have a process. Like I do this when I listen to music. Like I'm a big Drake fan, so when Drake drops an album and people were like, "Oh, what do you think about the album?" I never give them an opinion on the first listen of the album. I usually give it a good 3 listens, and then I come out and I can form an opinion, because your first time you listen, you're kind of just listening, getting a groove, all that stuff. The second time you hear a little bit more of the lyrics. By the third time, you understand kind of everything that's being said in the lyrics. I kind of do the same thing with movies. So this is rare. Like I don't usually talk about movies after freshly seeing them the first time. I usually do it 2 or 3 times. That way I can see everything I feel like I need to see, and then give like an opinion or that kind of stuff. Because I've had movies, like I loved the Batman vs Superman when it first came out. My opinions on it have kind of changed since then after watching it a few times. And so like that's the thing, is I don't want to get in here and calling this, maybe I'm not saying I will or won't. I don't want to call this maybe the second greatest Batman movie of all time. And then,
well, that's what we're here for, though. We're here to overreact.
6 months later, be like, well, maybe I was a little wrong.
I just want to tell you, if you get a chance, listen to Josh's Batman versus Superman episode. It is honestly one of the most entertaining things you'll ever hear.
I really lace into that one.
the love affair between Bruce and
yeah, what was his name? Damn it.
His employee.
His vice president for Wayne Industries.
No, seriously, it's great. And so anybody hasn't listened to Four Nerds by Nerds, that's a good place to start. But yeah, this is one of my first ones too to do a knee jerk on a movie this massive. But that's why we're here.
Yeah.
It felt massive. I won't sit here and say it didn't feel like 3 hours. It really did feel like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I won't lie. They could have cut some fat.
Yeah, that's something that I told my fiance after we watched the movie, because we kind of watched it together, and yeah, I would leave, John, but no, I told. Like I watched Endgame, and Endgame was like 3 hours, wasn't it, or something like that?
It's pushing.
I think it was 3 hours plus.
It didn't feel 3 hours, and so this one felt 3 hours, and maybe it's because it was more of the investigative, and there wasn't as much like high flying action as you were seeing in Endgame. But Endgame, it felt like the time flew, and this one, it felt like, I'm not saying the movie was slow, but the time, like real time, felt like it kind of drug on a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'll like this movie better when I can sit down and have some beers, and I'm watching HBO Max, and I can get up and take a piss every now and then.
Yeah.
Well, you also know what's coming too. You don't. Yeah. You don't want to miss a thing, so it seems like you have to pay attention the whole time.
I will say though, and I won't get in my nitpicks yet, because I and I may not feel about this movie the way a lot of the world does. There are some times to where like I could have probably went up and went to the bathroom and felt okay about it. And that's one of my nitpicks about the movie is
I went once. I had to. I was going to pee myself.
I think there was some fat to be trimmed, but it's their movie. They gave you because we bitch all the time because they make these movies and then we want the full cut, right? So everybody goes out and buys a Blu-ray. They want the extra. He gave us the a large cut of it, so we also can't complain like, oh, we didn't get it all. Like, no, he gave us he gave us his movie, and I respect Matt Reeves for that. So we'll just kind of dig into that. I'll start. I kind of gave you guys a rundown of how I kind of looked at the movie. So I had the three things that I liked. I'll go ahead and start off here. I'll just kind of go through the three things I liked about this movie. Stu, you already brought it up. We got detective work. Finally, we got Bat Detective. I liked how they did it. I thought the contact lens was great. I'm just going through my stuff here, and then you guys can break it down however you want. I thought the detective work was cool. I thought it made sense. Sometimes the detective work that he does, like let's say Batman 89. Well, yeah, if you just happen to have the most perfect sound recording devices in the history of man in the Wayne Manor, and you hear that you can individually hear whatever you want, it does make it easier. This was more like he had to figure it out. I like the awkward moments to where he's in the room full of Gotham PD, and they're kind of looking at him, and they're kind of like, this dude's here again. But he also is standing there like, what? like as if he's not wearing a bat costume. I really thought that was cool though. So I like the detective work. Number two, Batman wasn't perfect yet. This is supposed to be year 2 Batman. He makes mistakes. He falls. He has accidents. He doesn't get things right off the bat. And I like that Bruce Wayne, like he doesn't have this perfect shift to like this perfect Bruce Wayne that, like that Christian Bale did the perfect Bruce Wayne switch, which was fine for those movies. I like that this guy didn't, that he's still just like, he basically is like, I don't know, Alfred, I've got enough money to last me forever. And Alfred's like, well, you don't. This isn't how the world works. Like, you're going to have to go to work someday, and you're going to have to show up, and you're going to have to go to these parties. So I liked how we don't have, the perfect Bruce Wayne yet. And number 3 thing I put, we got what we finally didn't want. They didn't dwell on the Wayne murders. We didn't have to watch the murders. We didn't have to go through the pearls. We didn't have to do all that. We didn't have to see young Bruce crying on the street. We didn't have to see Alfred scoop him up. We get it. Like anybody in the world that knows anything about Batman, has ever read a comic, like we get it. And spoiler alert, Uncle Ben dies too. Like those are the 2 things that like
they finally did that easy thing of just saying, remember when your parents got shot to death? And he was like, yes, I remember that.
Yeah, can we move on? So those are the 3 things that those are just 3 things that jumped out that I liked about this movie. To oversimplify something before we really get into to the breakdown, just to kind of start the conversation off. So Stuart, let's start with you. What are some things you just jumped out that you really liked about this movie that you've been waiting on?
Maybe I'm overhyping it, and maybe I don't, I've watched so many of the live action Batman movies, I don't remember it all, but in my opinion, at least the first thing I said to, again, my fiance was, I felt like this was maybe the most violent Batman we've seen, as far as raw, violent, and like, when that opening scene, he's like, who are you supposed to be? He's like, I'm vengeance. And then he like beats the holy hell out of the guy. And then just like when he goes in to, address the Penguin and he's beating everybody up, like it seems more like, how do I say this? Like, I love The Dark Knight, but Christian Bale's Batman seems more choreographed, and all his stuff seems like they've worked through it and it's choreographed and all this other stuff, where Robert Pattinson's, I believe, like that's probably how Robert Pattinson would fight if he walked into a bar and started getting into a fight. Like, it's not choreographed. I'm not waiting on you to hit me.
That's fair.
And then I hit you. Like, he's going in, and that's probably how he would fight if he got in a bar fight. So I felt like it was the most real, honest, and like brutal version of the Batman we've seen yet. I really, really liked the detective part, and how we finally get to see that, how it was about 95% of the movie he was in the Batman,
which was fucking cool.
He was in the bat suit, he was in the cowl, all that stuff. Because listen, I understand Bruce Wayne is part of Batman. Like, you get Bruce, you get Bat, you get Bat, you get Bruce. But I think leaving that part left to be desired is a fun part that they can explore in the rest of this trilogy, which Matt Reeves says they plan on doing a trilogy. So I really like that part when it starts off, Bruce Wayne and Batman are all about vengeance and they want to get revenge and all this stuff. And you kind of see him grow throughout the movie to at the end when he's at the top of the scoreboard thing in the arena and the, criminal says, I'm vengeance. Like it clicks for him. Like, oh, like anybody can have revenge. Anybody can be vengeful. Like I got to be the light that people need. I think we're going to explore that part probably in these other two movies, and you're going to see more of the billionaire Bruce Wayne. And then I'm with you. It's just like Spider-Man. Did we need to know that Uncle Ben dies? Like, did we need to know that Martha and we don't need to know if they die.
We're so far into the Batman universe, we don't give a shit about the kid. Exactly. about the Wayne's dying. Like we're like, okay, let's get past this already. I can't see.
I feel like I rambled on enough, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the Batman.
All right, Josh, what jumped out to you?
Definitely everything you guys just said. Like I would say, like every Batman we've seen so far, like, has already been, like, he already got his scars.
Right.
Like, he's a seasoned Batman. Even, like, Christian Bale, like, once he became Batman, like, we saw him train and get his ass kicked and stuff as, like, a normal person. But once he's Batman, he's pretty Batman, And in this, like, he's just such a badass. He's like a street fighter that just happens to be dressed like a bat and has some gadgets, but like he's still figuring it out. He's getting his scars. Like he's getting shot a bunch. He's getting like piped in the back of the head and shit, but he's still winning.
How'd you guys feel about that? Let's bring that up real quick. When we talk about the fight scenes, I like the fight scenes. So two problems that you can't really deny them. There are with the fight scene. So, the Batman lore is he went off and he came back, and his story is he traveled around the world and mastered several forms of martial arts. But this guy was more of an MMA type of fighter, and that's fine. That they take liberty with it. I thought it looked pretty cool. I think Stu, you're right. Like the Nolan stuff looks so choreographed at times. Like you never felt anybody could actually hit Bale, except for the Joker. There were some good scenes in there with Ledger. But this guy looked like, he was doing more of the work, but none of the ninja stuff. So like, does it? I don't know. Does it even matter that is not really a martial artist? Did that even like? Did you guys notice that?
I'm not one of these guys who, and maybe I'm wrong, or
no, there's no right or wrong.
Maybe you guys
so many forms.
Maybe you guys
of Batman.
are differently, but like when it comes to movies and like based off of. That are based off of comics, like I don't particularly care if they're like extremely comic book accurate. Now, if you start giving like Batman like superpowers and you start shooting lasers out of his eyes, like, oh, okay, it's not Batman. But like if Batman, he did this in the comics, but he didn't do this in the movie, or like, he traveled around the world to learn how to fight in the comics, but here, he looks like some guy that just goes to your local bar and gets in a bar fight.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like that's not going to bother me. I'm not going to get hung up on it and be like, oh, it's a terrible movie. Like some people do when things aren't just how the books have it, or are not just how the comic books have it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did it well enough without even like mentioning it. Like he never even like really says he went away or anything in this movie,
which I thought was cool.
But like the stuff he's doing is martial arts enough. Like it's self-defense enough. He like snaps that dude's arm like 4 fucking times and beats the shit out of him. Like that's some martial arts shit.
And I've got a buddy that may recognize that as a type of fighting, because I didn't realize. Like for instance, they're the Tom Cruise Jack Reacher movies. I see it as just like it's fun fight scenes. I got a friend who trains, and he's like, "Oh no, that is." I don't know the name of it offhand, but he's like, no, that's a type of fighting. Basically, it's designed to immobilize your enemies, like by snapping their joints. Like, so like to me, it just looks like a street brawl, but it's actually, and this may be the very same thing. It's just, I've heard that come up a lot about the martial arts and stuff, but then I'm like, it never made sense in the comics either, because let's face it, this guy's wearing a 40-pound suit he's not Bruce Lee. Like honestly, some of the martial arts stuff never quite made sense. Anyway, I thought it was practical. I liked it. I was on board. It seemed real enough, and he seemed vulnerable enough. Like he could take a punch. He took. I thought it was cool how they decided to go. And I assume this was the decision made by Reeves as to where, like, how many times have we said, why don't you just shoot him in the face? Like that's always come up over the years. And they kind of like addressed that with like, he took bullets off the shoulders, and it just turned him, whether that's realistic or not. At least they addressed a lot of the questions that we've had about over the years of like, wait a minute, like why not? If like anybody that's ever like, the impact alone would have knocked this guy down.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple of parts like that where it's like they did what I call we did it because it looks cool.
Yeah.
Which is like him walking just slowly while just getting shot head on with an AK-47. And it's like their aim could be shitty and you could catch one in the face. You wouldn't just want it's terrifying, but you could die at any moment.
Yeah, I thought I've got a lot of nitpicks with what they did with the gunplay from start to finish in this movie. I don't think Reeves is he didn't feel like an expert. It wasn't John Wick. Like this wasn't John Wick as far as like, I think this movie could have used a little John Wick as far as like this dude's getting his ass kicked, but he keeps fighting through it. That's fine though. Like at some point it's still Batman. And
they did the Dark Knight thing of like showing him shirtless once, and he was really bruised up and scarred and stuff, and it's like,
okay, yeah.
How you getting scarred through that suit if you're taking shotgun shots to the fucking chest? Like,
yeah. That's one thing. We're not going to go down this road, but something in the Dark Knight that I believe it was the Dark Knight when he gets stabbed through the armor, they at least address like, oh, there's weaknesses. This guy's like year 2, I'm indestructible. Like by year 7, this dude's going to be Iron Man. But that's neither here nor
there.
Real quick, like some to go back to another thing I liked on TikTok, like, or YouTube, and you watch videos and stuff, people before this movie came out, they were like, movies you gotta see to understand the Batman, and they listed 7, they listed the Zodiac, and they listed another movie kind of inspirations, and you could really see the inspirations.
They definitely said 7. Like somebody better said 7.
Yeah,
this is a straight rape of 7.
And then you could definitely see the Zodiac reference from the ciphers and stuff like that, and I felt he did a good job of like, I understand it's a Batman movie, but I felt like he did a great job of paying homage to his inspirations and the movies that kind of inspired the way he wanted to go down.
Well, let's talk to Josh about this because I didn't know this. Josh is the High on Horror host. He's an expert. I didn't realize all the John Carpenter Halloween nods that they made. Did you catch those, or did you read anything about those?
No.
So I was told, and I don't know, I'll run it by you, but I've listened to several podcasts on this, but I guess the scene in the car when Riddler, I believe it's the district attorney, that he gets in the car, they said that was a nod to
because he's in the back seat and stuff.
In the back seat and stuff, but they said that was a straight nod to like John Carpenter's Halloween. And then there was one other scene like in the house to where I guess Reeves is a big fan or something. I don't know. I just, you're honestly, this would be right in your wheelhouse. I didn't know if you caught it. I didn't catch any of that, but I wouldn't because, I watch Halloween with one eye.
I mean, I wasn't looking for it, so I haven't seen anything. So I'm definitely gonna look at it now.
Yeah, I've just heard a lot. I've heard that come up several times. Now, of course,
I mean, there's definitely some scary fucking scenes in this movie. Like,
we'll
when the lightning strikes and the Riddler's just standing behind the mayor or whatever it is, I was like, holy shit.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's get it before we do dislikes. Let's just go down this road because I think let's do a couple scenes. We got let's talk about the introduction of our new Batman. Essentially,
it's so fucking cool.
It's so fucking awesome. So essentially, you got the voiceover. You're seeing the city. You got the rain. It's Halloween, which is awesome. Okay, I'll just say it. Why couldn't they just make the Long Halloween? I have no idea. It's my favorite story. They dabbled on it and then we didn't quite get it, but that's fine anyway. So it's Halloween. They do all that. You've got I love the voiceover, the inner monologue, I guess you call it. Finally,
that was Batman. I think the narration was Commissioner Gordon.
Oh, was it? Was it Gordon?
Because he's up by the bat signal.
Yes,
talking about how it's not just a call for Batman, but it's a warning. It's a warning. Batman's out there, motherfucker. Like, don't be doing nothing.
So I'll take you right to the moment we finally get there. The gang on the subway is playing the knockout game. Everything. They're on the terminal. You're looking down the hallway, you hear the footsteps, you hear the music, it's building up, and finally it's the first time we see Rob's Batman, and then of course he kicks the shit out of the dudes. I thought it was awesome. I was so like, at this point, I was knee jerk, like, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my life. I want to get up right now and leave, and I don't ever want to see another movie.
The score and everything is just so perfect, and the cinematography is so cool. Like, it's so, because they just keep cutting in and out from these different people doing crime, and then like they see the bat signal, and then they see like a dark alleyway, and they're like, shit, Batman could be in there. And then he finally comes out of the shadows in this one part, like during this one crime, and just casually walks up and destroys everybody.
And I thought it was cool because that was the buildup. I mean, we've been waiting basically 3 years to see Pattinson as Batman, and that was when, as an audience, that's when we're seeing it too. I thought Reeves understood that and gave us a really, really strong introduction. I think 89 was a better introduction because at that point we had waited 20 some years, for a Batman. I think the way they did it might be the more exciting one, but this was number 2. When it happened, like I just enjoyed it so much. Stuart, what did you think about the intro of Pattinson?
Yeah, I liked it. I like how, unlike like Batman Begins, we kind of have to wait. And I understand Batman Begins is kind of an origin story, and they kind of tease you before they give you the pleasure or whatever. But like, when we get to, I knew I was seeing if I could get somebody to laugh.
They edged you,
but they edged you. But I like how they just they threw the Batman at you. They're like, here he is. Like, we know this is what you paid the money to come see. We know that the Riddler isn't what you come to see. We know Catwoman isn't what you come to see, and we know.
I came to see Catwoman. I know you did.
And then we know that the Penguin isn't what you came to see. But so they gave you the Batman early. I liked it. I thought it was a good introduction. I thought it was a good introduction into the type of Batman we were going to see as well. Not just like, oh, here's Batman, but here's Batman, and he's violent, and he's vengeful, and he wants revenge, and he's going to kick your ass, and he's going to show you that. So be prepared.
Yeah. So I thought this movie, Reeves, I guess he's they say he's a huge comic fan, which, to be honest, every filmmaker that makes a comic book based movie, they say is a huge comic fan. So I never know how true that is, but they say Reeves is. This felt the most like the Dark Knight comic, as to where the guy just shows up and just snaps knees like that. The Dark Knight, that older Batman was just a dick. Like, it was not about anything other than just like, these guys are being assholes. I'm going to snap their knees in half. And I'm sure that's why the face paint kind of played into that, because it reminded me a lot of that.
Also, I think, because I heard a lot of people complaining about the face paint, and when you look at every Batman we've gotten, whether it's Flack or Affleck, jeez Louise,
Batfleck,
Ben Affleck, or whether it's Christian Bale and even Robert Pattinson, they all have the black under their eyes. It's just when we get to see them, it's already taken off. Like, their hair's done and everything else.
Yeah, so that's what I said.
There's a scene in Batman versus Superman that drives me crazy when Superman rips his mask off in the post-apocalyptic future, and he has the mask on and he has black shit around his eyes, and he rips his mask off and he has nothing on his face. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck? It doesn't go to his eyelids.
So I thought it was very like realistic. And I know a lot of people were complaining. They were like, oh, why is Batman wearing, I heard that on Twitter, but it's like, that's what Batman is. Like, look at the movies, you'll see it. And I thought it was very realistic.
No, I'm telling you right now, when we we're going to dig into Rob's version of Batman, and I'll tell you what, I have very, very, very little bad things to say about the actual
You have Batman bad things to say movie. Though.
I don't think I do. Okay. I'll try to think of something because I'm that way. But so speaking of which, we'll get into the dislikes because we got some questions. There's a lot. There's so much. So my dislikes, just real quick. We haven't talked about the Riddler yet. I liked this movie so much from the beginning. I thought the opening scene with the initial murder was awesome. I was so on board. And then it just turned into the typical, like, we did it again. It's just like, here's what I said. I'm over just like the upset white boy that like couldn't sit at the cool table. And then all of a sudden, like, he's going to upset the government, blah, blah, blah. Just like, oh, really? We're doing this again? Especially now, Reeves says that this is a coincidence, like, because, if you look at the current environment in the United States and everything that's happened, he swears it's a coincidence, that he didn't plan any of this. It was all written before that. I got to take him at his word. I do not have the research, but I just wish they would have just stayed to the serial killer story. I think they had something so cool and so creepy going on, and just rode that out instead of going into the bigger picture of like bringing down the government and crooked this. And because my number 3 dislike was crooked politicians, just so low hanging fruit. Like, Batman was surprised when they said that like the DA and everybody was crooked. Like, wait a minute, you're Bruce Wayne. You're one of the richest people in Gotham. I guess you're considered the richest person in Gotham. You didn't know that politicians might be on the take. Like that stuff just doesn't jive with me. He was so naive about that. I just thought that was kind of low hanging fruit. I know it's part of the Gotham lore, but like, we all know that, if I tell you right now, like, hey, this politician's crooked, neither one of you guys would go, didn't see that coming. I didn't like it. And I thought the one thing they kind of did with Catwoman and Batman, they kind of did the romance sort of like they played it out in The Long Halloween, but The Long Halloween was 12 months long. So these two had time to keep randomly meeting and figured it was like over a year. This story takes place over 6 days total from start to finish. I thought it was too fast for the Batman and Catwoman to like basically kind of fall in love and then like have to make decisions and stuff. I really thought they pushed that storyline a little quick for me. So that was just 3 dislikes that jumped out. Again, everybody says this about this movie. Not that I dislike the movie, but these are just little things that I'm like, we didn't need to push the bat romance as fast as they did. And I really think that they had something with the serial killer and they backed off of it for an easier, so that way they could have a boss fight at the end. So that would be just some of the dislikes I have.
Yeah, I really like the Batman Catwoman stuff, but
no, I think it
probably did take
cool.
away from the ending because the ending was a little flatter than I wanted it to be, because it was just like, oh, doppelgangers, like.
That bothered me. Oh wow, copycat guys again. That's
well, what bothered me the most was when Commissioner Gordon said he has 500 followers. He's gonna take down the whole city. I was like, no shit. Jesus Christ, I could take down the whole fucking country.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Freaking yeah. Hell, between us 3, we got tens of thousands. Like I can't get shit done. I can't get my fucking pod being paid for. This dude's starting revolutions. It really, like, honestly, all that stuff really bothered me because I'll just say it. Like I feel like I'm tired of being a hostage of like these guys with hurt feelings. Like and I know a lot of it just happens to be because of the last 2 years that I'm just worn out, and I just wanted. They just had a mystery going. I loved the Riddler. I loved everything. And then it just kind of, to me, just completely changed. And I'll give you my alternate ending here to kind of explain it after you guys give some of your nitpicks or dislikes about this show. So Stuart, what are some things that like maybe you didn't like, if there's anything?
I'm sure there's something, but again, this is where I would like to see it a second or third time part comes in to kind of really like narrow it down. One thing I did think throughout the movie and maybe this is my fault for kind of having this expectation going into the movie, but it was
Stuart, you feel way too guilty. Like,
it was just
you're
so
allowed
hyped.
to feel however you want.
It was just so
movie,
hyped,
bro.
and so like I was waiting for that moment, like we got with No Way Home, when you saw Tobey Maguire and you saw Andrew Garfield walk through the tunnels, where everybody was just like, "Yeah."
Spoiler alert, everyone.
Where
just in case you didn't watch Spider-Man,
where it's like, yeah, this is what we've been waiting for. You know, like this is what we've been waiting for this movie for. I kind of was waiting for that moment, and it never really like came. Like I was, don't get me wrong, like I was glad to see the Batman on the film, but like I guess I was kind of waiting for this big like introduction from the Penguin, or this big like introduction, more of a bigger introduction from the Riddler, as opposed to kind of like, I'm not saying it wasn't dull or it wasn't well done, because I love this movie, and I all time I'm probably going to rank it pretty high as to where I think it goes on the list. For certain.
But it's a great movie. Like that, nobody will deny this.
I just think movie. I was waiting for that moment, I guess, and maybe it was because of how much hype it had coming into it that I was like, oh, that moment's going to come, and it never kind of did. But other than that, there's not really a whole lot. I think some fat should have been some trimmed on it. There were some moments where it was like, okay, like let's get on with the story. But other than that, like I thought the movie was great.
Well, I think it's really like it is a comic book movie, which is like which kind of like helps ease off the whole. It's 3 hours long. There's so many characters and blah 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 blah. It's like there are a lot of characters in a comic book. Oh, no, like Batman will see fucking 9 different villains in one night. Like he wants answers, so he's gonna go fucking shake down the Penguin to get information about the Riddler, and then the Riddler will have something that'll lead him to the Joker. Like it's always some shit like that. So I thought it was cool. I thought it definitely sets up a universe for the picking if they want to do it.
You said something that sparked another complaint, and maybe I'm being naive because I know everybody else probably wants it. But here's the thing: I honestly I'm kind of tired of Batman with Joker movies. Like I understand that like the Joker is the most lucrative villain that he's got, and he's the most popular villain, but like I felt Jeff talked about politicians being the low hanging fruit there. Like I felt the Joker was the low hanging fruit for this movie. It was like it wasn't needed. I don't think like you could have told in a completely.
I thought that was the biggest mistake in the movie.
You could have told a complete story without ever referencing the Joker, and like I love The Dark Knight primarily because of Heath Ledger's Joker, but it's just like I've seen Jared Leto's Joker. I loved Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. We saw Jared Leto again.
Whoa.
We saw Jared Leto again.
I can't even start this conversation.
Yeah, what is this? What? What?
So it's just
that movie is trash.
We keep getting too many versions of the Joker, and like maybe that's coming up with Batman. Probably not, because I love Batman so much. But like we are getting so many versions of the Joker. It's like here's what not do that.
First of all, that should have been Calendar Man. Second of all, so let's just talk about it. Let's just jump ahead. Like we'll talk about it. One of my questions was your thoughts on the final scene. Nobody can like that final scene. I don't care what Matt Reeves was like. No, that was definitely the Joker. I don't think it was the Joker because there's so many Batman stories to where it's supposed to be the Joker. I mean, the Killing Joke is the number one example. Like it's supposed to be the Joker he's talking to. It. Shout out. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Killing Joke or read The Killing Joke in the last 30 years, the guy's not the Joker. I think that's how they're going to handle that because I just cannot fathom that they would try to spring another Joker on us at this point when there's so many great villains out there. But, when we start talking about the Riddler, we'll start talking about, was it the Riddler or was it really Hush? I think we all know that it was really Hush, right? Like this character, I think this. Well, I felt they were teasing Hush for the next movie. Like maybe I took what you said differently, and maybe I misinterpreted what you said. See, I think
Hush is going to be the villain in the next movie, and probably the third one as well.
I think the next movie is Court of Owls, and I don't think it's even a.
Well, I think the third. I think you would. Well, yeah, maybe we're predicting here. I don't want to get into like a debate over what we think the next movie is going to be, but I feel like they'll probably
because we're so structured.
Introduce
break the structure of the show.
Introduce another like villain leading to the Court of Owls, where they'll introduce it, and then there'll be the big final like showdown with the Court of Owls, the third and final installment.
Yeah, which stinks for me because I don't like that story. I've read it like twice, and I'm like, it's just not my story. Like, it's not that it's bad or whatever. It's just not mine. But before we're almost into characters, and then we can really start, dicing this stuff up. But we talked about the introduction. How about just the overall, like, as far as like just technical stuff, the look and sound of the movie? Because I'll just start off by saying I thought it looked great. It was really dark. It's going to be kind of hard to. It might be a little hard to watch, on TV. It's another one where I don't know if the replay values are great. I thought it looked really good. I like the angles and stuff. I thought the sound was as good as any movie that I've watched in a long time. I guess one of the main guys that worked on this also worked on the Star Wars stuff. Like, he's actually the one that filmed the scene in Rogue One, where you see Darth Vader. So that's why there's the similarities there, which explains a lot, which I loved. I just want to say I loved it. So I thought the sound between Batman, I thought the fight, the impacts, the Batmobile, the score, I thought it was one of the best sounding movies that I've heard. It'll win the Oscar. I promise you this movie will win the Oscar for sound editing. So what'd you guys think about the, we'll say just combination, special effects, visuals, and sound?
Yeah, it was all great. I loved the score for this movie.
Oh, it's great.
It fits so well. It's such a cool like Batman theme, and they play it throughout because he's Batman for 95% of this fucking movie.
And I like how each character has their own sound, very very a la Star Wars, very Star Wars type sound, which. Again, Star Wars. That's why Star Wars has won so many Oscars and shit for sound. Like, I thought it was. I really, and again, I thought the crunching and the fights and everything sounded comic book. Does that make sense? Like, it sounded like you see it in the pages of a comic. I loved it. Stuart, what'd you think about how'd you feel just the visuals and stuff of it?
Yeah, I thought it was very visually.
I mean, there wasn't as much neon as Batman and Robin. Was you good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not a huge Batman and Robin fan. Batman Forever I love, but Batman and Robin, not a huge fan. But I liked it. I thought it was really good. The tone overall, the dark scenery, but I kind of like how I get the 95% was Batman, but like I like how we see Batman in more like with the Dark Knight, right? Like, we don't see Batman walk into a club in the Dark Knight and beat a bunch of people up. Like, it's kind of just like he hangs out where the gang members are. He hangs out where the Joker's going to be, or he hangs out at the police station, where like we see Robert Pattinson's Batman in the city, like in the town, and you can see how dark the town is. You can see it's a town that almost looks hopeless and looks like it needs somebody to be that guy, and Batman is.
Yeah, I thought it was a great Gotham, and that's another thing I loved. I loved how much Batman was in the public.
Yes.
Like, he walked into public bars, he was in public places all the time. He wasn't always in the shadow. Like, they saw he was in a room full of 20 cops. I mean, he's carrying on a murder investigation. Like, I loved how he was so accessible, Batman was. I thought that was cool. I just thought that was cool shit.
Well, it's such a cool side to see of Batman that we haven't really gotten to see in the movies very much. They've done it a little bit, like they did it a little bit in like the small scene in Justice League that's in Gotham City of talking like, is he a hero or a menace and blah blah blah. But like in this, like Batman's not even trying to be a hero. He is just pure vengeance, like that. He doesn't even call himself Batman in this movie once. He's just like a walking path of destruction. Like, everybody's kind of scared of Batman, not just criminals. Like, everyone kind of fears him, which I think is a cool like story arc of like.
Did you guys watch the Gotham show that was on Fox?
I ended it about I forgot how many seasons there was, about halfway through. But yeah, I watched it for the most part.
Like, I love that show and how they went about it, but I really felt like this, felt like a elevated, evolved version of that Gotham. Like I think that felt more inspiring than any of the other Batman movies did. I picked up a lot on that, which it was a really cool show, and that's what it was about. It was called Gotham. It was about Gotham. It was about setting the tone. I think that's another thing that Reeves took from. So let's so we're gonna do this. We're gonna talk now. We can talk about the characters a little bit. I'll give my approval ratings, and I'll give a short briefing of how I thought about the huge characters that are going to be in the universe going forward. We can't break down every single person in the movie, but I started with Alfred. I gave him a 55%. I thought Serkis did a good job. I heard he broke his hip, so he was limited into what he could do in the movie, and it might have changed. That's why he actually had a cane in the movie. He needed one. He was actually injured. Basically, I said he did fine, but he was not irreplaceable. Like, I think there's a few people that could have done this Alfred, and I'd have been good with it, even though I do going forward, I'm sure that, I'm going to like it. So I gave Alfred like 55%. Stuart, how'd you feel about Alfred?
I'll give it, I don't think it was anything like, it's not Michael Caine, or it's not the Alfred from
the OG
from Gotham. So it's nothing, overly like
by
that.
far the best Alfred, but the guy that was on Gotham.
Yeah, Sean Pertwee.
Yeah.
55
was a good number.
Josh, how'd you feel about Alfred?
I really liked him, but we didn't get enough of him to get a solid love for him, like you love like Michael Caine or anything. Yeah. But it just it absolutely did add to the list of the fact that we've never had a bad Alfred. Every Alfred has always been awesome.
Good point. But the brother can get a mobile phone. I'm just saying, maybe a Nextel, maybe a walkie-talkie, like true. Something. Like
it's because he's proper and British. He still answers the house phone.
He can get singular wireless.
I want to know: does that old lady maid know that he's Batman too?
That is, what? That's funny. Have we had her since the original Batman, like from the '60s? Because she was a huge part of the '60s show.
Oh, really? No, I've never seen her.
Yes. So she's in about every episode of the '60s show. That's a big part of it. I thought that was pretty cool that they threw that in, because I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, she's there. And in the '60s show, she's always kind of like, oh, you silly boys. And I think the gag was the whole time she knew, but I don't think it ever came out that she knew, but everybody knew she knew. It was one of those, because that show's ridiculous. Like, let's be honest, but as much fun as it is. But all right, next. Now I like this one. This was fun. The Penguin. I did not know the Penguin was in the show, and I did not know when I left that I would be like, that's the greatest Penguin I've ever seen. I gave him 85%. It's Colin Farrell. And I didn't know it was Colin Farrell till after I watched the movie, when I was watching interviews about the movie. And I thought he nailed it. Stuart, what'd you think about the Penguin?
Yeah, I thought he nailed it. I'm with you. I don't mean to steal
I thought he's pivotal.
Words,
I think he's pivotal in this movie.
Yeah,
I
thought he nailed it. He did a great job of playing the guy who's in it with the mob, but also like a villain as well, where Danny DeVito's was kind of just a villain that seemed very scary and creepy, where I could see.
Well, he was eating babies.
I could see Colin
killing beauty queens.
I can see Colin Farrell's version of the
rogue penguins.
I can see Colin Farrell's version of the Penguin though in a New York City bar. I could see that happening.
Yeah. Which is like the Penguin
being tied up with a real mob and things like that. Yeah. So I'm with you. I give him higher than 85%. I'll probably give him a 90, 92.1. Nice. But yeah.
Yeah, I like the Penguin a lot. Josh, what do you think about the Penguin?
I loved him. I'll give him 100%.
I think he's great.
I think he completely loses himself in that character. You cannot tell for a second that that's Colin Farrell.
No, not for a second.
It's just a completely different person. And I really hope all of these characters are reoccurring characters. I hope the Penguin's in the sequel. I hope Catwoman, there's a 3-movie arc of their love storyline. I want a complete trilogy.
As far as I know, the Penguin has his own HBO Max series coming.
It just got confirmed today that HBO did order it, so it is.
I thought he crushed it. Yeah, I loved it.
There's also going to be an Arkham Asylum show.
Oh,
yeah, it was supposed to be a Batman show, but it kind of
Yeah, it was going to be like GCPD, so kind of like Gotham, but
oh, did you guys ever read that? Hospital. That's a good comic.
I've heard of it, but no,
it's really fun to read. A non-Batman comic.
Yeah, now they've twisted into some sort of like horror-esque show about Arkham Asylum.
I heard that, yeah. Which I'm here for it.
Hell
it's probably gonna be like Zaz or somebody. Jim Gordon, Lieutenant Jim Gordon in this one. Jeffrey Wright. Here's what I said: great actor, and I totally bought it. And my main thing is I can see this guy being Jim Gordon for as long as he wants to be. He's not going to age quickly. He can do whatever he wants. I thought he totally committed to it. I thought his chemistry with Batman was great.
It was amazing.
Yeah, so I gave him 90%. And I always got these because 90% is a really high approval rating. But I love Jim Gordon. Stuart, how'd you feel about Jim Gordon?
I loved it. My favorite, one of my favorite scenes. It's not my favorite, but one of them was where he told Batman to hit him and then go out the back door and he punches him right in the face, like knocks his ass out. Yeah, that's very funny.
Yeah, he really didn't have any. He didn't have a whole lot of flaws in this show. Like I don't have a lot of nitpicks. 95, yeah. Yeah, Josh, what do you give him, Josh? 100? You are, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll give him 100. He was awesome. Like hitting Batman and shit.
Jeffrey Wright,
like backhanded him. Like, what's wrong with you?
Great pick. And here's what I like about it: you can't ignore the fact of how diverse this cast is, and it doesn't have to be brought up. Like, it can just be. This movie is a great example of like, no, you can just cast anybody and move on. Like, we don't have to have a conversation about Jeffrey Wright doesn't look exactly like the Jim Gordon. Who cares? Like, no, who gives a shit, So I think that's cool. But he's just a great actor, and he's also Felix Leiter and James Bond. So like he's in two of my favorite supporting roles in history. So yeah, Jim Gordon was awesome. All right, here we go. Now this is where the conversation is going to start getting deep. Let's talk about Catwoman. Yes. So hear me out here.
No,
I gave Catwoman 50%, and here's why. She did a great job. She looks the part. She's not Michelle Pfeiffer. There's nothing I can do about it. The greatest Catwoman of all time, but she looks awesome. She's a great actress. The chemistry was there. She did everything right. The reason her approval rating is so low is because I don't know if I needed her in this movie, and I'm not a huge Catwoman fan. I think that you can delete most of everything she did and everything still winds up the same. So I really hard grade as far as the actress and as far as how she looked, and obviously in the costume, everything she did, wonderful. If you told me she's not in the next one, I don't care. So I only gave Catwoman 50%, even though and I'm older. So like, it's hard for me to like, okay, I'm going to say something to you guys. So I don't know if remember the scene where they're showing the graveyard and they show Catwoman's mom's headstone. So Catwoman's mom was born a year after I was. So that really cut deep. So we probably don't see Catwoman quite the same. So Stuart, how do you feel about Catwoman? And remember, you're trying to get married this summer.
No, I like her. I thought she was good.
She was great.
I'm going to give her higher than 50%.
I mean, she's a fantastic looking person.
I'm not so sure that we needed her, but I mean, I think she added to the movie as far as like with the relationship with Batman. And I think the whole like,
but she felt like she only distracted him. I'm not going to lie. I felt like she only distracted him.
I do think, I know that you thought the politician part was like a low-hanging fruit, but I do, and I understand Batman could have got it a different way.
The bar scene was awesome.
I do think she paid a good, role for Batman, and how like he used her to kind of get information, but was also like, listen, you'll get information from your friend for your friend if you help me get information about the Riddler and all, how to get to the Penguin and all those different kind of things. That's where I liked it. Maybe
she checked
maybe we didn't need her, but I'm going to give her like a 75, 80%.
Josh, let's talk about you and Catwoman's relationship.
It's 100%. 100%. She was intoxicating.
Yeah, she is. She's magical. Like I do not take that away at all. Like every scene she's in, you're like, this is. But I do like that. And this is a big thing in movies. She wasn't too much for Pattinson. Like sometimes you have that to where these actresses are on there and you're because like if you look at Batman Returns, Michelle Pfeiffer walks over Michael Keaton and it worked for that show because that's what she was supposed to do is like overwhelm him. But like she was just she was a comet. I thought her and Pattinson, I thought the chemistry was real. I believed it. I loved everything about it. I just didn't need it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think they nailed their relationship, and I was glad to see it. But like I said, I would love to see a overarching love story for Batman. So I'll take a Batman Catwoman story.
I just needed a longer period of time. I like the motorcycles were cool. Like they rode the motorcycles like they do. I thought what I really liked about Catwoman is when they showed her from a distance, like say going, from balcony to balcony and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They really made it look like the comic, like the smooth, like almost acrobatic Catwoman. I thought that was cool. The scene, I think one of my favorite scenes, the scene in the club where he's like, Bruce just isn't getting it. Because this is where I call him Bruce because he's just not getting it. He's like, no, go back and talk to him. She's like, this isn't going to go well. You know what I mean? He just hasn't lived enough life. He doesn't have the awareness of like creepy old dudes. Like this is going to be a problem if she gives this guy any bit of attention. And she was right. Like she was so street savvy. She checked him, she did a great job. She did literally everything she was asked to do. I thought it was a perfect, I can't imagine anybody you could cast better. I mean, just crushed Anne Hathaway. Like I just got to say, because I just can't stand Anne Hathaway's version of Catwoman. I just got to throw. I shot across the bow at Anne Hathaway, but I thought she did great. She was. Now I didn't. But here's where I got sideways on Catwoman. I didn't care about the whole Falcone being her father.
Yeah, that was oddly kind of thrown in there.
Just forced. And I know it's part of comics, but it's what I said earlier. Like, how many comics are you gonna derive storylines from, dude? Like you gotta pick one. Like you've got like 17 different stories you're pulling parts out of.
Well, and we already had motive for her to want to do this. Her friend was murdered. We didn't need to be like, he also killed your mom too.
Oh yeah. By the way, he's the worst person ever. And then and you're gonna have to save Batman a couple dozen times. All that stuff a little. I thought but I do think the scene of like her breaking in the safe and him being there, like stuff like that, was really cool. It's just another one of these things of like maybe on the editing room floor, you could have picked some of these things apart and sped it along, but they didn't. That's fine. I respect it. All right, let's talk about the Riddler. Because I don't know, especially Hops. Hops isn't here to defend it because I talked a little bit about him before the show. He loved the Riddler, everything about it. Dan knows his dude. I gave the Riddler 60%, and here's why. Because 60% of the movie, I was in. I loved it. I liked where they were going. We talked about it earlier. And then all of a sudden, here's what I can't stand. Whether it's Seven, whether it's The Usual Suspects, when the guy's like, hey, we did all this work. We've spent, over 2 hours of this movie trying to track this guy down, but then he basically surrenders in a diner. I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like he was obviously he was going to surrender anyway. And then from then on, it's like the speeches, the bigger picture, so here's a question. Why is he so mad at Bruce Wayne? Like, how well does this guy know Bruce Wayne? Because we're talking about year 2 Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's been gone for like 10 years. He's not around. Like, I don't understand how this guy cares so much about a kid that hasn't been in the public eye. He's basically been off the grid, and then he comes back as Batman. He's already established he's barely Bruce Wayne. Like he doesn't do all the.
He's more pissed off at. I think it's more that he's pissed off at his dad because.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like again, that's also, the motive for destroying the city. I'm sorry. It just fell apart on me. I'm in on you cutting the thumbs off. I'm in on you murdering people. Just keep going with it. It really fell apart at the end. And then I did not like the weird, like sort of like whatever kind of crying thing he was doing in the Arkham cell. Like, whatever that was about. Cause that's not I don't know. The Riddler's usually pretty kind of together. Riddler's not as deranged as everybody else in Arkham. Riddler's just kind of like out for money and more selfish. This bigger picture vengeance Riddler, I didn't quite get. It fell apart for me at the end. So I gave him 60%. The kid did what he was told to do. People are loving him. Stuart, I don't hate Riddler as much as I hate running backs, but it did fall apart at me at the end. So I'll let you guys kind of tell me why I'm wrong about Riddler.
I'm gonna give it my first 100%. I really loved it. I thought it was great, like all the way through. I get what you're saying, and I understand. Like I see.
I'm not even trying to convince you. It's just how I saw it,
and I can see where like your complaints come in because like I get that. I just felt like it was a very good main villain. Like I guess I would consider the Penguin a sidekick as far as that goes.
Oh yeah, the Penguin's definitely not a villain.
The main villain, I felt like he was always one step ahead of Batman, even planning to get caught.
No, the Riddler won. The Riddler beat Batman.
Yeah, the whole Riddler like tying. Batman. I think the whole tying into the Bruce and Thomas Wayne situation, because I also think there's a picture at one point when you watch it where there's a question mark when they go to the Riddler's apartment, and it's around the two kids. I believe, maybe it's just me dissecting too much into the movie, but that's the Riddler growing up as an orphan with Bruce Wayne. And so him being like, listen, you understood what it was like to be in an orphanage, but yet you come back and you have this money, and yet you're doing nothing, and you're not helping what your father built to help orphans. And I feel like that's kind of where like his anger towards Bruce Wayne came, because Bruce Wayne seems very isolated. And I think at this point, Bruce Wayne seems very focused on being Batman as opposed to taking care of what Bruce Wayne needs to take care of. And I think that's what got the Riddler and kind of drove him mad and drove him crazy.
I just think that there was one point there. He's in this. They're having first of all, this is my biggest nitpick in the history of Batman from 1966 till now. I don't know why these supervillains keep talking. Batman can't, like, their plans almost work, but they can't shut up. And then Batman's like, as soon as they say the wrong thing, and then they stop. Like, if Riddler just sits there and doesn't say anything, everything goes fine. Like, because Batman had no clue. The Riddler won. The Riddler beat Batman in this, and especially if Catwoman doesn't show up, like Batman's like it's over. Like everything, the Riddler won. He just couldn't shut up for 2 seconds, and then Batman like eventually, like the Riddler just says enough that he figures it out. And then they gave Dano, like, they're like, okay, here you go, man. Here's your 7 minutes. Just go. And to me personally, I didn't buy it like we did with, like, say, the interrogation scene that Heath Ledger pulled off in The Dark Knight, to where I'm like, okay, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen on film. Me personally, the Riddler had his time, and I'm like, I just didn't think he did it. I didn't think he lived up to it. I thought, like, honestly, like a different actor maybe pulls it off for me. Everything behind the mask, everything in the Hush mask, I'm in. Like, I'm up to it. Everything until the pie scene. Some of the video stuff was weird. I know they had to force like modern technology in there, but I'm like, man, that stuff got weird. But you know, I just didn't buy it. That's it. I didn't care. Like, he gave the whole speech. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Basically, you got the NRA out there trying to like kill a mayor. Like, that's what it boiled down to. Like, that's all it boiled down to. It wasn't.
Yeah, the problem with a lot of Batman's villains are that the majority of them aren't, for Batman being such a physical specimen who can kick the shit out of anybody, the majority of his rogue gallery are not a physical threat to him in any sort of way.
Right.
So you don't get these like final confrontations where he's hand-to-hand fighting the Joker or anything, because he fucking kicked the shit out of the Joker in no time. So it was a little bit of a letdown when we get to like, here's a bunch of copycat gang just shooting rifles, and the real Riddler's behind bars. But yeah, I'll split the difference. I'll give him an 80% because I get where both of you are coming from. I think, everything when he was dressed up as the Riddler in his costume was amazing, up until the point where they did the last video with the whole 500 fucking followers, where he didn't have any effects over his voice, and he was just like, hey guys, I want to thank everybody for following me, and we're all going to get our rifles and go and kill the mayor. And I was like, why is he talking in his regular voice?
And this is where Reeves is going to have a hard time convincing me that he thought of all this before, like, say, I don't know, let me pick a date, January 6th last year. Like, that's Reeves is going to have a hard time convincing me that all this was set in motion before. Like, it just seems so derivative. Maybe not. it was close. Like the Riddler was close, and I've grew up on the Riddler too. Like think how many years of Riddler I've got. I've got all the cartoons. I've got the 66
Jim Carrey's wonderful version.
The Jim Carrey wishes he was the Joker version. Like all these things, but when you read like the one character that's usually pretty controlled, because here, okay. I'll just say. So when you read the books, usually when it's Joker and Riddler, like those are the two like kind of like similar ones, and they go head to head a lot. They don't like that's the thing. Is that the whole point is that the Riddler is usually the one like, hey, calm down, man. Like, let's think this out. And the Joker is usually like, nah, let's just burn this shit. And so I hate when then all of a sudden now the Riddler goes off the end too. It's like, and it's just another case of like, and this has always been a problem with the Batman villains. Like, oh, wait a minute. The entire time the villain, it was just because he has some mental issues that he's having trouble dealing with. You know what I mean? Like, just for once, just give me a full-fledged villain that just wants to rob the fucking world, whatever, the World Bank or whatever, and Batman stops him. I'll give you my alternate ending here again. I think you guys remember.
You got that in the Dark Knight.
No, because Dark Knight's almost perfect except for fucking Two-Face. But don't get me started.
I'm talking the main villain. We don't talk about the sidekicks here. We're talking about the main villains.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah. Well,
first of all, Two-Face should never be a freaking side villain. Okay. I can't even start. Two-Face is like one of the longest running villains in Batman. He's got a 12-hour run. Two-Face has a 12-hour run.
Jesus I opened up Christ. That can of worms. My bad.
Anyway, so that's my point. I mean, it was so close. So I'll give you. Here's how I think that if it goes, I would have had almost the perfect movie. I think instead of switching over to the People's Army or whatever, the last 20 to 30 minutes is the Riddler. Like you got the new elect mayor who they tried to, instead of trying to shoot, he's got her in a situation like whether it's her home or a hotel or whatever, and it's in the dark, and he's lurking and he's literally just trying to personally murder her. And then Batman's trying to stop it. And it's this real tense, like, in the shadows, like last minute, kind of whatever. Now, if you want to add some henchmen in or whatever, like, I think that's how I wanted it to end, and he saves it. Because I like the new elect mayor. I thought she had good charisma. Like I'm in. And I think I wanted that. I think I just wanted to, because he was so good. He was so like thought out in the plan and the attacks and all these. And then all of a sudden he's just willy-nilly online. Like, what if nobody's online that day? Like, his plan fails. There's just holes in it. There's just huge giant holes in it. Like, what they want to do is force in the fight scene. Now, the fight scene did give us the Batman shooting the adrenaline, which was one of the coolest things I've ever seen on fucking TV or on screen. So that was awesome. But it was just one of those, like, it was really close to being perfect, and I thought he kind of bailed out a little bit on it. That's all I'm saying about the Riddler. But it is what it is. And you know what? He never wore the hat. Come on, I need a hat. Come on, Riddler. I need a hat, bro. But yeah, it is what it is. All right, next. The next character, and I'll call it a character. We got a Batmobile. We get a Batmobile in every movie. We got a Batmobile in this movie. I was surprised. I gave it 75% because I love the low-tech version, and we talked about it. It sounded freaking great. The Fast and Furious car chase was what was. It didn't bother me. I'm in on it. The ramp falling down's dumb. Like, I don't know why anybody let that stay, but it looked cool on the other end when he shoots through the flames. But I like the low-tech. Oh, really?
Yeah, Matt Reeves says in a post-movie interview that was not CGI. They actually ramped a car through flames.
Okay, so there you go. So I gave Batmobile 75%. I thought it was pretty freaking cool. And another thing, that car was completely electric because they didn't want it to explode with all the flames. So it was actually an electric car. So anyway, I gave the Batmobile 75%. Stuart, did you have any feelings about the Batmobile?
I mean, it's not the Bat Tank, but I'll give it a good solid. You're right. I'll give it a 75%.
That's fair. Oh yeah, the there's nothing like the Dark Knight Batmobile is my number one. Like, that thing is just with the tumbler. The fucking tumbler is just great. We got a bat cycle in this. I should have thrown that in because the bat cycle was kick ass. Like Batman riding on the motorcycle was one of the greatest things. Well, the next category, when we get to Battinson, all this shit's good. So, Josh, how'd you feel about the Batmobile?
Yeah, I give it 75%. I liked it. I thought it looked really cool. I am a fan of a more like unrealistic Batmobile. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it. Like, I just like it to look unique, but it was cool, and they still made it badass. The engine in the back was awesome.
Oh, that's a good point. And before we get to Pattinson, real quick, how did you guys feel about the basically not having Wayne Manor? How did you feel about this kind of downtown located, I don't even know what we call it, a bat hideout? It wasn't even really a cave. Like that kind of put me off, but I think I liked it a lot. It was just different. Maybe I liked it because it was just different.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Yeah, I didn't find myself tunnel? Thinking about it. So
yeah, what was it like?
I did like the tunnel that he drove through.
A bat tunnel. Yeah, I thought that was pretty freaking cool. They're great decision. It made more sense. Then we didn't have to deal with the mansion and all that, which again, when we start talking about the universe that they built, like it really lends to that. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about Pattinson. I gave Pattinson this Batman. I gave it 90%. He literally passed every testament. The only reason I gave it 90 is because there might be a universe to where there's an improvement. I don't know what it would be. I got everything I wanted. I got the armor looked good. He didn't overdo it with the voice. I like the mean Batman. I like the mean Bruce Wayne combination. I liked how he was dismissive. I liked how he was kind of a dick to Alfred, but then realized that he was being a dick to Alfred. I really liked like the growing pains. I think Pattinson totally knew the assignment and knocked it out of the park from start to finish. I loved everything about this Batman. Stuart, how'd you feel about how do we feel about our new Batman? I think it's fair to say now that this is our Batman for 10 years.
I tweeted this out after I watched the movie, and I said that this is this generation's Batman. Now, I grew up with Christian Bale, so like Bale will always be my Batman, but this is this generation's Batman. This is a great one for them to have. 100%. Like, I love this character. I give it 100%. I mean,
he was fucking awesome, dude.
Everything about it, I loved it. I mean, I was waxing poetically the entire show. So, I mean, I love this Batman. I think it's funny because everybody, just like they did with Heath Ledger when he was cast as the Joker, there was a lot of the guy from Twilight's gonna be playing Batman. Yeah, that guy from Twilight playing Batman just kicked everybody.
I was on board the whole time. Yeah. I was on board the whole time. I was like, he's an actor.
I was too.
And he's tall. He was tall, and he's an actor.
I think the part that kind of offset me a little bit, and maybe he was joking, was when he talked about he wasn't going to pick up any weights or work out or anything. That part kind of bothered me a little bit because it's like, how can you be Batman? Like, you can't be a stream being and be out there like fighting people. But you could tell he worked out. You could tell he was ripped.
Yeah. I thought he was a total badass. Look at that, an old friend of mine, Dustin Kelly. How are you doing, Dustin? It's great to see you, man. Great podcaster, by the way. Josh, how do you feel about our new Batman?
I thought he was great. I didn't think that his Bruce Wayne was that great, but like I said, he's only in like 5% of the movie,
which is cool.
He's Batman, and I think that was a really cool distinction to see because I've always talked about that version of Batman where like he is Batman and Bruce Wayne is his alter ego.
And he even brought up that he lives nocturnal. I thought that was cool.
And he's like, I like the story, and I'll like to see the story progression of the fact that like he's going to have to learn to be like this playboy and understand the importance of putting on this facade so nobody will think that he's Batman, but he's still Batman all the time. Like, I've always found that extremely interesting, and I'm glad they're doing that in this movie. But his Batman was fantastic.
Can we talk about the best scene with Bruce Wayne in it? Was the funeral scene. That's one of my favorite. Like when I love that. I love the crash in the car. I love the neck. That freaking I don't know what you want to call it, the neck bomb. Like was so straight out of like a Batman comic.
What I didn't like about it was how like. How
Bruce didn't get his face burned off?
No,
is that what you're saying?
This is a nitpick here. if somebody sent a car crashing into a funeral and it said to Jeff Hunt, are you gonna and you're not technically Jeff Hunt right now, are you gonna run home, change into your Jeff Hunt costume, and then come back to answer the envelope? I mean, it's huge, like he's huge Bruce Wayne and it says to the Batman. Like, we're gonna wait a half hour for him to go get into his bat suit. He may have to take a shit while he's doing it, and then like come back and be Batman.
He carries these bat suit and a backpack, like I don't know, look like a kindergarten sized backpack. There's some issues.
I guess that's a negative I have going back to the beginning of the podcast here at the end. But yeah, like it's just like
that's a nitpick. That's not a negative.
That's a nitpick. And that scene is like,
because that scene's great.
That scene's great, except for that part. I could have done without that part because it's like,
I think that scene is as good as the bomb in the stomach scene in The Dark Knight. I think that it's as good as that scene.
I could have done without that scene in The Dark Knight too, but
yeah, the Riddler's like fucking Jigsaw in this movie.
He's literally Jigsaw. That's why I said, and then just to let it go. Anyway, so you got me started again, but it's so cool the shit he does, and then just to be like, oh wait, I forgot. Like, I'm done being like a world-class serial killer now. Now I'm leading the people's army to bring down this government. It's like, well, what were the murders for? The murder, if you're going to go this route, the murders meant nothing. Like, they were just like, they were meaningless though if you were just going to have mass chaos. So like, pick one or the other. Me and Reeves need to have a talk. That's all there is to it.
One thing I can't think of it right now, but one thing I'm unclear of at this exact moment is like, how the fuck did the Riddler figure all this out? Like, he's just some dude. How do you know about like Carmine Falcone and all this other shit? Like, is he?
How do you know who the rat was? First of all, the whole like, if you wanna have shows about the mobsters, that's fine. But to constantly squeeze like all these characters and then the mob trying to keep the the Maroni and Falcone and stuff straight, like, it's really so much. Turturro's great. Like, if you get me John Turturro in a movie, like, I'm on board, and he was great. But you're right; they never really explain how the Riddler knew everything. Well, and here's the problem. Okay, so then that implies that the Riddler's one of the smartest guys in the world because Batman didn't know this shit. He was completely caught off guard, and then all of a sudden at the end, the Riddler's just a babbling lunatic. Like, those two things don't line up. Like, he spent all these years of research and figuring this out and these elaborate plans and how to break into high security, mansions and blah, 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 and how to hide this stuff and the thumb drive and blah, and just on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, he's just a babbling idiot rolling around in his cell.
And too stupid to think that Batman was his partner. Like, he thought Batman was on his side.
Like, that's why nobody will convince me that these two, like, that this was all the same plan. Like, nobody will convince me that. Anyway, so I love Batman too. That's the bottom line. So a few things to finish it up. Do you guys, this is my question. They've built this universe. The actors are great. We just talked about almost everybody lives through the movie. So like, these characters can go on for a while that they've built that we just talked about. Do you guys approve of this universe that Reeves built for us moving forward? And this is probably going to be like our Bat universe. Stuart, you're as big a Batman fan as I know. Are you good with, are you ready for the sequel is what I'm asking?
Yes, I'm ready for the sequel. I just hope they don't fuck it up. Like, that's the thing. Like the ball's in your court. You've done a great job. Like, the reason I love the Dark Knight trilogy so much, and the reason I love the John Wick trilogy so much, I understand they're coming with a fourth movie, so it's technically not a trilogy, but right now it is I've said this for years, and you can watch each movie in the Dark Knight individually and not be lost as to what happened in the last one. Like, you don't have to watch Batman Begins to understand what happens in the Dark Knight. And I'm not saying you have to do that with this trilogy, because I understand this story's kind of different. But like, each movie, it seems like, like with John Wick, it seems like I like 2 better than I did 1, but I think I like 3 better than I did 2. Like, that's not supposed to happen. Like, in the history, like, we've seen sequels suck. And then the third one, it's like, okay, we got to end the franchise, aka Spider-Man, because this just blows, right? So like, you look at it and you're like, okay, we got to end that. I hope to God they don't mess this up. Like, the ball's in your court. You have the opportunity to hit something out of the park here and compete with the Nolan trilogy. I don't know if you'll ever get there, but at least compete.
And I think it can.
And so it's like, please just like don't mess it up, because you have an amazing opportunity here, and all the momentum's on your side.
I like it.
I Josh, just don't. I don't want to see every movie kind of be the same as it comes to like bad guys.
Yes.
Like, I would like to see maybe in the next one he fights like Deathstroke or something, like a physical, like
they're
villain,
they're rumoring
or Bane or something like that.
So it's like, I don't want Freeze.
It's free.
Our friend Dustin Kelly says we get it free in 40 days. So there will be
April 19th or something.
So so Dustin helped me get through some serious Joker when it came out. He helped me get through some. He does a great Joker review if you go back through his history. But then he helped me kind of get through it one time and kind of got me started doing this crazy stuff.
No.
And he says, but you're right. I love the base that they've built. I love the world they've built. I love this Gotham. I'm with Josh. Like, this is my whole point. We need a little more mindless villain. Like, they don't have to have this huge big picture, alternative plan. Like, I just want to see like more chaos or something like that. I really hope they try that. I think what they're going to do, I really feel like Court of Owls or something like that's coming up, one of the bigger storylines. I don't think they're leaning into Joker. I really don't think that was a Joker at the end of that movie. I think they're gonna get the feedback. They left themselves a window that can't be the Joker. You know what I mean? Like, that could be somebody else. And I think they'll get the feedback and go, okay, let's ditch that. Let's not go down that road. Deathstroke would be cool. That would be actually super cool.
The guy who plays the Joker, not Joker, to stop doing like post-movie interviews,
saying he's the Joker.
They keep asking about if he's Joker, and he's like, can't answer it. Just like, shut up. Just like, actually don't go in any more of these tours and like dig Matt Reeves into a hole that he may or may not want to go down.
And guess what? After year 2, guess who Batman meets? Dick Grayson. Like, let's not be scared to throw a Robin in here or something like that. Like, Robin's
I saw an interview with Matt Reeves where somebody asked him if they were planning, like, is the plan to have the mayor's son become a Robin? Because like he saw his dad die and stuff like that.
It fits.
And Matt Reeves looked genuinely shocked that he hadn't thought of that. And he was like, interesting. No, that's not the plan. But so I'm wondering, like, if now he'll change it and now that'll be Robin.
I just hope I don't die before I get a Damian Wayne in a movie, because that's my favorite Robin of all time. And I think
it's the only way to get a kid Robin and have it not be cheesy is have it be Damian Wayne, the kid that fucking kills people like Hit Girl.
Exactly, it's Hit Girl. Oh my gosh, you're reading my mind. That's what we need. Let's just do Death in the Family. Let's just do Death in the Family and move on. I'm ready.
I'm ready to see somebody get beat like they did with the.
Just choose your own adventure.
With the animated, we have everybody in there with their own little buzzers, and it's like, okay, which road do you want to go down? Oh my gosh,
should he live or not? Oh man, I agree. I love this universe. I'm here for it. Even I know it sounds negative about the movie. If you go to my Letterboxd, I actually rated it 4. I love the movie. I just know that I watch Batman movies like I watch the High State Buckeyes. If it's not 73-0, I tear it apart. And so it sounds like I'm more negative than I am, but I did enjoy this movie. Okay, just real quick, Stuart, your knee-jerk favorite moment in the movie.
You guys are gonna be like, really? This is your favorite part? But I think the part where he's chasing I can't remember. It might be the Penguin through the streets, and he's swinging on the bat rope, and he cracks his head on the bottom of the railroad tracks. Because I think that's a part, like Josh mentioned earlier, how refined Christian Bale's Batman was, how refined Ben Affleck's Batman was, and Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer. Like, we see, okay, well, damn, this guy actually is.
The thing about Keaton, though, he literally couldn't move in his suit.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, okay.
Keaton couldn't do anything.
It's like, okay, damn, this guy actually is like human. Like, okay, he does have to learn how to be Batman. He doesn't just wake up one day and he's this big brooding guy who goes around and beats up bad guys. Like, he still struggles like me and you do. So I think that was one of my favorite parts because it kind of added a human element to Batman and that character. And then I would say my ultimate favorite part, and maybe it's crazy, but I like the part at the end where he's holding up the lighter and he's helping people get through the water.
That was cool.
Because to me, that represents the growth that not only Batman but Bruce Wayne had to go through.
You mean like the third ending?
Yeah, like the third ending. Like I talked about with at the top, right when he gets done fighting the bad guy, where the bad guy's like, "I'm vengeance," and it clicks for him like, okay, I can't be acting out of revenge. I got to act out of being the light for people.
That moment of him in the daylight was
maybe my favorite part in the movie.
I agree. Josh, what's your knee-jerk favorite part? Wait a minute. First of all, Josh's favorite part is Catwoman changing into her Catwoman suit. What's your second favorite part, Josh?
Agreed. Probably the nightclub scene where he goes in
where he's
and,
like, fuck it.
But not only like the fight scene in there where he's beating the shit out of people on the way to the Penguin, the whole interaction he has with the Penguin is amazing.
Oh, no.
Like the Penguin's not scared of him at all. He's still doing drug deals like right in front of him and shit.
I thought that's when I was like, okay, this Penguin, like I'm on board. Like I am totally on board. I agree. That was wonderful. We didn't even talk about like the whole droppers, what they called them. Yeah. That stuff was, I didn't mind that because you got to have a reason for.
I thought that was a very Batman comics type of thing.
Me too. I thought that was a great reason for Gotham to be all screwed up and stuff. So another good decision. Like
because there's stuff like that in the Dark Knight Returns. Like there's always this like weird, like phrases that don't actually exist.
Well, if you live where I do, well, Stuart, you live in you live in Indiana. It's the same. Like that's pretty much the community I live in.
Half of them don't have teeth, and by half I mean the majority of the people you see at Walmart don't have teeth.
Yeah. No, that was really cool. I like that. I like that a lot. We didn't talk about I thought a nice touch real quick just to throw in the twins was fucking cool. Yeah. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. They never said it, but that was neat. What they did with those guys.
I know you may not have. Well, never mind. Wrong show. Never mind. I've been watching Flash too, so I kind of got my memory mixed up there.
Oh,
so never mind.
You're still watching The Flash?
I am not caught up on Flash.
Oh,
you just started it. Oh shit!
I'm only on season 2.
You're going up. No. You're on your way up, and then you're about to go really far down.
You're gonna get hit in the face.
But I was gonna say the bald-headed guy in Flash also plays in Gotham, and I got it mixed up with the Batman. So I was like, oh, remember? And then I was like, oh, shit,
that's all right, man. Us nerds, we get things mixed up like that. I had a few of them. At first, I thought my favorite was just the first intro of Batman. Like when he walks in, I'm like, oh, this is. I just felt so good at that moment when I thought I finally got my Batman. I like when he's in the flying squirrel suit and fucking wrecks, and just gets trashed. That was super cool. That was neat. I honestly, my favorite scene, and it got ruined, but it was still my favorite scene at that moment, was the first murder, and when he murders the mayor in the house, and when he's standing there and the mayor's walking around, he's on the phone. I think that's my favorite scene in the movie, and that was at that point. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I'm ever going to watch. Didn't turn out that way, but it's still at that point.
Well, definitely.
Like, yeah, at that point, at that point, I was as happy as I could be finally watching a Batman movie. So I still put it up there. But everything Pattinson did was awesome. I love it. I love the scene, when he gets back to the Bat Tunnel and he immediately gets on the computer and here's a great one too. When he's doing all this stuff, the detective stuff, and everybody's thinking like nobody could be this smart all he's doing is staring at stuff and he's taking all this information. And when he downloads the contact, I thought that was one of the coolest things of technology, like usage in a movie I've ever seen, almost like a Mission Impossible type situation. So I thought that was an easy way out, but it made sense, the downloading of the contact. So I thought that was real fucking cool too, because I'm a mystery guy, you know. So that was neat also. But overall, I love the movie. I guess we might as well rate it. You know, I don't know what you guys want to rate out of. Are you guys on Letterboxd? Do you guys do Letterboxd?
No.
Josh, you need to get on Letterboxd, bro.
Yeah, I probably should.
As many movies as you fucking watch, you run on Letterboxd. Oh my god. So we'll just go out of 5. We'll give it kind of a quick rating here. Stuart, you know, just 1 through 5. What do you rate the Batman?
A 4.9. I'll give you a 4.9.
Oh shit, you really like it.
I do. I told you, and I'm probably going to confirm myself after I watch it again. I'm probably going to rank this as the second best Batman movie I've ever seen.
I think I got it third right now. Just because when you're as old as me and you watch Batman 89, that it was like being shot out of a rocket ship. It's hard for me to get past that.
I also have like nostalgia feelings towards like the Dark Knight. So my view towards the Dark Knight might be a little skewed, but hey, whatever. That's a different debate for different.
Dark Knight's better. Josh, just quick 1 through 5. What do you got the Batman? As of now, as of first viewing. We're not holding you to it.
First viewing, I give it 4.5.
Nice.
It's right, I think, right up there next to Dark Knight. But yeah, I still think Heath Ledger's performance is too good for anything to ever dethrone that movie. But yeah, no, I really loved it, and I'm really excited to rewatch it. And
Me
now
too.
that my expectations are like set exactly where they need to be, and like I can look at things and like really focus on like cinematography and stuff like that, I'm excited.
Cool. I'm curious to how I think this will age. My gut reaction is it's going to be more like the Dark Knight Rises, to where it's going to get picked apart a little bit and come down a few notches. But yet I think the next one could be fucking amazing, like wonderful. So that's not a bad thing. If I drop it, I've got it right now at 4 on Letterboxd. If it drops to a 3.5, but the next one's a 5, like I'm good. Obviously I'm a tough grader. So real quick, Stuart, tell everybody where they can find you. I appreciate you being on, man. I know it was late, but it was worth it. We got one of the best in the business to come on with us. So you got a taste of my other world tonight, besides the sports podcasting world. So everybody where they can find you, man.
Yeah, after I introduce myself, I'll probably go ahead and drop out. I gotta get up early, so I gotta get out of here. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter. It's right there at StewPock5. You can also find me on Instagram at Stuart Brooking, on Facebook at Stuart Brooking. You can find my podcast at Stew Morning on Twitter, and it's at Morning Brew with Stew on Instagram. And I don't have a Facebook account, but you can find the podcast wherever you can find podcasts.
All right, man. Thanks so much for being on, Stuart. You're the best, man.
Thanks for you guys having me.
Josh, give a quick shout out to where everybody can find you, man. I know you're one of the busiest men in podcasting right now. Josh, you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just shout out where everybody can find you, man.
Yeah, sorry, I was getting glitchy there. For Nerds by Nerds podcast every Monday. Follow us on Twitter, FMBN Podcast. Everywhere else, FMB and the number 4 and letter U. And High on Horror, new episodes every Wednesday. You can follow that show everywhere at H on H Pod.
And I recommend both of them, everybody. Josh, I want to thank you for being on. Stuart dipped out. I want to thank him for being on. Thank everybody that's watching, everybody listening. We love the feedback. Let me know what you think. In 40 days, I'll watch the movie, and maybe I'll do an update. We'll see. But other than that, hey, same bad time, same bad channel, everyone.